Good morning, friends, and welcome back to another episode of Willis Wit and Wisdom. My name is Eric Willis,
And I'm Bob Willis.
and together we either bring wisdom or wit, or we attempt a little bit of both. Every once in a while, it comes
Mhm.
out, but
Yeah, we'll at least bring a Willis.
yeah, you got the Willis part. Uh, well, Dad, this morning or afternoon, whenever people are watching, the topic of our conversation today is it has to do with time. It has to do with feelings. It has to do with a lot of things because it's grief. So,
Yep.
um, what can we give? What can you give folks who are grieving?
Yeah, that's. I'd like to share some very foundational material on grief. Probably something that changed my life and direction in grief was understanding the difference between grief and mourning. Because throughout my work with grievers, I heard the question, "When will I feel better? When will I feel better?" Everyone wants to feel better, especially after a loss. So my response now is, when your grief becomes mourning, you will feel better. When your grief becomes mourning, grief doesn't just go away. And we need to find ways to put words to our grief. And that's when it becomes mourning. What I discovered, Eric, was the person that has a loss, what you feel on the inside, the emptiness and the loneliness and the sadness, the heaviness, that's our grief. No one can see it. But when we put words to it and share it, it becomes mourning. So grief is on the inside, mourning is when it's shared. The good definition of mourning is grief gone public. People can see it and hear it. Well, Jesus did not say, "Blessed are those who grieve." Jesus did say, "Blessed are those who mourn. They shall be comforted." So that's the difference between holding it in and letting it out. It's Matthew 5:4, by the way, in the Bible, where
Right.
Jesus said, you're going to find more comfort when you talk about your feelings. So when people ask, "When will I feel better?" I just want them to understand, when you can put words to your feelings and express them, that's when you'll feel better. And I think you found that in your work too, as far as being able to talk to safe people, the importance of having someone to talk to. How do you identify that safe person?
Right.
That's
And
tough.
it is. It's very difficult, and even then, it requires you to be vulnerable enough to allow someone access.
Hmm.
As you were talking about the difference between grief and mourning, you know, a lot of people walk around stuffing their grief or trying to work through their grief without it
Right.
becoming mourning. And so
Hmm.
um, those are the types of relationships that you have where you really don't know what's going on with another person. It's are you okay? Do you want to talk about it? Do you and you're going on as normal, and this person is grieving on the inside, and they're making assumptions, getting angry at you because you don't care about their feelings.
Right.
Well,
Mhm.
they haven't expressed their feelings to, or even
Yeah.
invited you
It's
into
just,
that mourning process.
that's
So
right.
uh,
Yeah.
finding those safe people is a two-way street. You have to be willing to be vulnerable and allow yourself to be ministered to be loved on, to be encouraged, to be held, to
Hmm.
be just to be. And that's what I would encourage safe people to do. Uh, my opinion, the safest people in a grieving process are the people that are present, not verbal.
Yeah.
The
Hmm.
safest people are the people that are present, who don't really have a
Yeah.
lot of words to say. So
Hmm. Yeah. And it is what we call that ministry of presence, just being there. And the people reflect back of time of loss. They don't remember what's been said anyway, but they can remember who was there, that presence, that comfort that they find just being there and with them. That's
yeah,
so important. And then I find people ask me, "How long does grief last? How long should I expect to feel like this?" Well, again, it comes back to the mourning part, that shortens that time frame, softens the pain. The pain will always be there. Grief does not go by a calendar. I have not yet seen a calendar that's a grief calendar. I need to put one of those out. It needs to have blank pages on everything, because there is no calendar on grief. Some people say it lasts 6 months. Some people say it lasts a year. I read one gentleman said he thinks grief lasts 2 to 3 years. but I have developed a way to tell when you're over grief. This
Yes.
is how to tell when you're over grief. You take your hand, you put it across your chest. If you feel a beat, you're not over it. As long as we've got a brain and a heartbeat, we'll be grievers.
Yeah.
The only way for us not to be a griever is if that person is put back in our life alive. Okay, we're not a griever then, but that isn't going to happen. So we'll always be a griever, but it doesn't have to overwhelm us. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm saying that we had our grief become mourning. That's to soften the pain. We talk about the feelings. We find someone safe to talk to so we can express ourselves. And it may come out in words, may come out in tears, may come out in actions, but it's a way to express feelings. And throughout history, when there was a death, the women would usually be the one to clean the body and dress the body while the men were out building the casket and digging the grave. They were busy doing something. And sometimes we find ourselves need to be busy doing something.
Yeah, yeah. And, I'm just sitting here thinking that, grief is a constant. It's always there. It may not always be in the forefront, but it's always there.
Exactly.
And I think about my grandfather, your dad, that I was 19 years old when he passed, and I'm in my 50s now. And there are a few days of the year that when they roll around, my thoughts go toward my Papa Willis. Mm-hmm. And a little grief stirs. I get a little sad that he didn't get to meet my wife or see my boys, or just the things of life that I would have loved to have had him participate in.
Yeah.
And so that's a grieving, and that's a natural and normal process. And so just because, that's 40, almost 40 years, 30 some odd years ago. And there's still a grieving component to that. Is that normal?
Yeah. Absolutely, it is. In fact, one of the things that I believe our message, Eric, the message we put out here today, is to give people permission to grieve, but also give them permission to express it. And, unfortunately, we live in a world that does not give us, they'll give us 3 to 5 days of bereavement leave from work and expect us to be over it. And that doesn't happen. So we need that permission to express our feelings. We need permission to do that. I want to give people permission. In fact, they can contact me at rwillis14@cox.net. That's my email, rwillis14@cox.net. We'll communicate. We'll get on the phone if we'd like to let them talk about feelings. It's that important to be able to express feelings. And I know you want to be open and available to people too.
Absolutely, especially those of you who are in spiritual leadership and ministry leadership, who are walking alongside people who are grieving and mourning, and just need an extra infusion of hope in their life. You can reach me at Reclaim Leadership. Nice shirt, Dad. I like that. reclaimleadership.org, and I'll be happy to connect with you that way. So, parting words today, Dad?
Yeah, I want to give people permission to feel what they feel and realize that it will soften, but it softens when we talk about it, not when we stuff it.
And I will add that don't put a time frame on grief, because the same time frame on grief is your lifespan. So,
amen. That's right.
Thanks for being with us today, folks. We look forward to seeing you on the next episode of Willis, Wit, and Wisdom. God bless you. Dad, love you. Great to see you. And we'll talk to you next time.
All right. See you, folks. Get a hold of us.